Oh, it's true when you go.
Best, I had an unkind thought when I was going to a meeting right at Nelson and a meeting with Becca Logan. And it took like 5 minutes to get from our swing space office
Yeah.
there in my car, and I probably could have hoofed it. Of course I wouldn't, but you know,
Right.
it's like this traffic is outrageous.
Not aware of Nick not joining us this evening, but it is 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the work session to order. And our ambition this evening, you saw, was continued discussion about the proposed fiscal year 26 operating budget. And depending upon how much concern and discussion we have with that, had some other items tangentially in getting granular with some details with the city manager and the finance director. But any other ambitions for our time this evening? If not, if we're not finished, we'll plan to conclude at 6:50 and give 10 minutes for potty breaks and drink refills to start up at 7. But with that, I'll call on the city manager to lead us on.
Thank you, Mayor. We put together a quick outline of some other things to go by for this agenda, but we don't have to follow this religiously. But at the last work session, which was March 13th, there were several questions. Jen has tracked down the answer. I've put several answers to questions in weekly updates, but she can update on Mountain Gateway debt, RARO. It's an interesting question. Write down on your slip of paper what year was last year. We did not have an operating surplus, and see how close you are to it. And then the Lexington City Schools ADA accessible van. So those are items left over from last.
Pretty good.
Okay, so first with the Mountain Gateway debt service, I confirmed that they're not renewing their lease with BB for the Rockbridge Regional Center. They're moving to the new building. But Dr. Rainoni told me that they're still requesting support from the localities for the lease payment on the new building. And so I was talking with Steve Bolter because we questioned, we thought they owned the new building. But apparently they're owned by their real estate fund, so they will be paying rent to this portion of it. MGCC, that's related but not related.
It's a real estate foundation that they have. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that,
Say that again. Yeah,
so they're not renewing the lease.
don't use pronouns. Univista is the owner of the property. Mhm. Okay.
Their Mountain Gateway is moving to their new building,
Okay.
but they are still going to have to pay rent. So they're still asking the locality for the same relatively level.
Very good. Do we know what duration they're obligated and looking?
Longer than we are allowed.
Again?
Longer than we are allowed.
But that would be good then for
Just a
Buena Vista that the building would be on the tax rolls.
Yeah.
So,
And just if anybody's interested.
Should.
They're putting together a committee to decide the best use for them.
I think Councilmember Sigler had asked about the RARA office building. We own the building, as you know, and we have I want to say FY27 capital project to repair the siding. And the question was, will those costs be split proportionally among the jurisdictions? And I don't see any reason why not, although I don't know what our operating agreement. Jen, I don't know if you had a chance to research this anymore today.
I have not, there's been talk about this in the past, and we have helped pay for certain things that the county had to do for improvements on shared areas, but then we've also not. So I think it's kind of a gray area. Also wants to go out of the direction of what you see about.
I would think we'll ask for the money and then we'll see how how, yeah.
I think there's a precedent that when the inside of the building had some modifications made, maybe some new carpeting, that those modifications were done with, I don't want to say surplus funds but funds that had been contributed by the localities. And it certainly is in the bylaws that capital projects will be split. But it is also true that each locality is supposed to take care of their own facilities. Like we take care of Brubaker and Fox and everything, and Buena Vista is supposed to take care of Laurel Park and that even, not to get too much into inside baseball, but Lexington does a great job mowing the grass. Some of the other localities do not mow the grass. And then that leads to Raro employees mowing the grass with. But anyway, I think there'd be a case, since we charge such a significant amount of rent for that building, that they would share, and we charge nothing to Raro for rent, and we don't take a fiscal agent fee, that it would make sense to share in the new siding to keep that building functional and quality. So that's my own personal thoughts.
It seems like we have basically a fiscal year to give our
Yes.
partners heads up that this might be coming, and it's not that much money, but it's an important message.
Did everyone pay for the annex improvements? Do you recall?
The county did contribute. I'm thinking back around the time if Buena Vista was coming in at that time,
Yeah.
and they may have contributed. If they were a part of Raro at that time, I'd have to go back and kind of think when they came in.
But the county did
The
participate.
county did.
That was property acquisition, not,
Well, we,
about
We own the
the
property.
city of Lexington acquired the property.
But it
and
was the
then
improvements. I was just wondering about the improvements if they shared in that.
Raro did some fundraising, and then the localities chipped in, and Raro oversaw that project. With like Danny McClung did a lot of the excavating, ADS
Yeah.
with the drainage. So that was a significant capital expenditure in addition to the acquisition.
gotcha.
And the fencing, Jake Wilson did the fencing.
Certainly want to embrace the spirit and of the agreement and as much heads up as possible. I hate to even raise the question, but is the building worth adding siding or replacing the siding? Or when we take the siding off, will we have a pile of something?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer.
The answer, yeah.
I'd love to have some
Good point.
level, because at one point it seemed like people were falling through the floor or it was in really poor condition. I'm just a finance guy, so
True statements. You're making true statements that slight improvements have been made over the years but I'll tell you, the staff has not said that the building is uninhabitable. They said it'd be great to have new siding, like a lot of people come to that office and
I'm not looking for the Waddell $12,000 carpet, $40,000 carpet that came 12 million replacement.
I know.
Not looking for that, but
Good question though. Yeah.
we can verify that and give a heads up.
Next. Anybody like?
Last year? 2008.
Let's see. I'm gonna guess fiscal year 2013.
2012.
Closer.
So the closest without going over is Leslie, but it's 2011. And Chuck's not here, and he was the only one on council during that time.
Oh,
Probably would've-
That's why she has 12. Right.
people turned.
So we have spoken to Jason White, following up about the schools and the activity bus. And put him in touch with Enterprise, who we're using for some of these vehicles. And at the moment, Jason's waiting for a quote from Enterprise. They were gonna see what they could do for him. And he received one quote for the activity bus, and he was going to have another quote. He thought he'd get it today, but I didn't hear back from him. So we hope to have an update to bring forward to you guys. Hopefully we'll find a solution that works in FY 27. Do you have anything?
No, I mean, we could, increase the budget by taking additional funds out of the equipment replacement fund, if that's your desire. We could reduce another piece of equipment that we're purchasing, police car, some other piece of equipment, public works vehicle. If you want to hold the line, I think it was approximately an $80,000 figure for the equipment that they wanted, the van/bus that they wanted. So
And part of the appeal for that was you don't need a CDL license.
that's right.
And so for instance, I think VMI, Kendall, other organizations have what I call the sort of oversight. It's not a van, but can handle 16 or 20 people or something like that. Is I just don't have a great sense of what they need and the use. I heard activities van for smaller groups. I heard ADA and, what frequency we're using it. I also heard, there are times when the bus is full and they need to make a second run between the schools. So,
I think those are the needs. And then, and there are occasions when they'll send 5 or 6 teachers to training in Charlottesville or some other location. And rather than having taken personal vehicles, a teacher could drive, or an appropriate administrator could drive. And they'd be using it for all kinds of short-term purposes. Rebecca articulated that need back in October. And, I'm supportive of it, but it doesn't necessarily have to happen. The school budget is being healthily increased in the FY 26. So it's up to you and council. They still request it, but they haven't complained too much about not having it in the budget.
Well, again, it is really the school board to bring that to us and do the homework on it, but to know what they're currently paying to rent the bus from the county, and do they have to, hire a driver at that time because a city employee can't drive a county school bus, or how many times a POV is taken to Charlottesville or Richmond and mileage or rental, just if they're like, oh, it's costing us 12,000 a year to Rockbridge County to rent that transportation, and it would cost, if we broke this down, to 16,000 a year for 5 years to buy a activity bus, it would make sense to me. It would start to make sense to me.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of a math problem there.
Yeah, I certainly have no objection. I just want to fully understand, because I've just seen times where it's like, oh, we could really use this, and then it sits, or it doesn't serve the purpose. If you're using it once a month, so
Price might go up in the future with tariffs that.
tariffs may be an issue, to be sure. I'm just, I have no objection to it. And I fully support it as well, but I just really want to understand what we're looking to accomplish, because to me, it's different vehicles. And I mentioned Kendall and VMI. There are other organizations that may surplus, because we're not looking to drive this to Tennessee and DC and, extended, just to run around town. So it may be buying one that's used, that's fully functioning, because somebody's surplus that has the ADA accessibility makes a lot more sense. So I don't know that that's been explored or is desirable. Thank you.
We have direction to get more information.
Stress testing, huh? Oh, my gosh.
Get on the treadmill.
Stress tests. So funny. So as Jen is pulling this up, I mean, we've had some discussion about how in FY 26 interest income is estimated forecasted at 1,520,000. Significant amount of revenue, more money than our sales tax. And both in the short term, in FY 26, if there are economic storm clouds happening today and potential for interest rate reductions, that will affect our yield. And then beyond that, beyond just the upcoming fiscal year, there is the question of are we overly reliant on interest income structurally? And I think those are two separate questions, both important to ask and answer. It is a significant chunk of revenue for the general fund. So council remembers we had some discussion. Council updated our investment strategies last year in 2024. There's a committee that consists of Pat Delaney, the treasurer, Jen, and myself. And we're looking at how to invest our treasury. Ultimately, it's Pat Delaney's decision as our elected treasurer, what she invests in. But we have made some changes that will potentially increase our yield without risking any security. Because we have a healthy treasury, we can look at investments that are more than 1 year in duration. We're not relying on the entirety of our treasury for cash flow purposes. And so council updated its policy. We have opened up a longer term account called a VIP account, which is Jen, if I'm not mistaken, more of a 1 to 3 year maturity. We have we're talking about laddering out certificates of deposit so that you have CDs maturing monthly on a schedule so that we can pursue 11 or 12-month interest rates that are more favorable. Locking something in at something 4.2 or whatever the interest rate is. And so if the market changes as it is expected, interest rates are expected to go down. Fed meets in June is the next time that's expected to happen, unless they have an emergency meeting, I think. We would have locked in something over 4%. The assumption for the model in our budget is a 4% average yield on a $38 million treasury. That's how we develop the $1.52 million figure. So anything we do that locks in a rate or yield higher than 4% within that time frame means we will meet our expected budgetary figure. So that's part of the strategy that we're pursuing.
What do we, like, let's say the yield does drop, like what strategy would we employ at that point?
You may not be able to see it, but Jen and I, Jen put together a stress test to show if interest rates are falling, what happens to the revenue. And you may not be able to see it from where you're sitting, but
If you can't see it, you can go to the YouTube page and you can see Jen sharing her screen.
Okay.
So it's easy to see.
I can see it pretty well.
Hey, you show off? I can't.
I'm also happy to send the spreadsheet out. So what we did, and I apologize, it's long to pull it up and I don't want to duplicate anything you said. The next Fed meeting is in the middle of June. And from what I've read in articles, the rates are expected to drop. So I calculated what our investment balances would be at the end of this fiscal year, if the rates stay the same through June, and we have the normal additions of funds that we put into those investment accounts after, like, we collect taxes in June, for example. And so then in July, I went through and I looked at a full year's worth of cash movements. And it appears that in July, we generally have cash going out of our investment funds to pay the bills. We have a lot of quarterly bills for the end of the year, plus some bond payments that we read at the beginning of our fiscal year. So that's what you'll see, the balance went down. So then in regard to the expected yields, I I have the rates going down 0.25% June, and we would see that then in July moving forward. And then according to some of the other articles I read, it's anticipated by the end of this calendar year that the rates would be down to 3.5 to 3.75. So I added in two rates for the rest of this, two rate drops for the rest of this calendar year, also going down 0.25%. And then the article further went on to explain that right now, and of course, all of it is subject to change, but that by the middle of 2026, rates would be between 2.25 and 2. So we made those adjustments for the LGIP and the VIP stable NAV funds because they generally are right around the Fed funds rate or slightly higher. The bond fund that Tom mentioned, the 1 to 3 year bond fund that we're not currently invested in, we're proposing to possibly move 3 million in next year. And, supposedly, when interest rates drop, the bond rate should go up. So what we did, just to be conservative, is we kept it the same as what VIP has on their website right now, what the yield is. We also, Pat and I have been working with Truist to purchase T-bills and CDs so that we can kind of secure a yield out in time. So we also set as a goal for ourselves, I guess, that we will work to ladder those funds at the current rates. And so all that being said, if we do those things, we would miss budget by $40,000, almost $41,000. So of course we would work to try to beat that, but that is our test for the moment. And also if we wanted to look and see if interest rates dropped by a larger amount, what that would look like and what the potential deficit would be. We have the ability to do that too in the spreadsheet. We can change anything.
And so the other thing that we talked about on March 13th is we are monitoring all of the revenues and we're working on building a forecasting tool for sales tax, interest income, utility revenues, meal tax, some of the most recession sensitive measures, I would think. And so one of the things that is incumbent upon us is to be measuring where we are relative to budget. And as we're looking at this, we don't just have to look at the revenue side. We can look at the expenditure side. We can look at how we curtail expenses or delay expenses in order to adjust both sides of the equation so that we're balanced by the end of the year.
You read my mind. I was gonna ask about like the sales tax and the meals tax. Do we have any new data since the last time we talked about it?
We do. It's good.
That's good. Okay, good.
Jen's always a little afraid to share good news with me.
I see the dollars.
I then try and spend it. That's her concern. But I think the bottom line on all the forecasting metrics that we shared with you on March 13th is they're all generally improving for the remainder of this fiscal year. And we're going to then take the data, the forecasting tool that we are developing, and then try and figure out, once we have year-end data, how do we improve that tool and improve our ability in a Boolean sense to improve our ability to use that to predict.
And I just sent around the tax revenue graphs for February and March at the beginning. Jane, have you had an opportunity to put those on the website already?
They're in the weekly to go out tomorrow.
Okay. For a preview though. Here's our sales tax graph. For sales tax in February and March, we're about where we expected, a little bit higher than last year. However, we are still anticipating to miss budget on that. I think the donations are decreased, maybe 67,000. Meals is another one that's always interesting. And we were just slightly above last year for March collection. But still, we're following the same pattern that we do each year. And then lodging tax collection. Little bit behind last year for the current month, but overall, we're doing.
Good stuff.
Can I just interject for a second? I knew I had some figures about Mountain Gateway somewhere and I found them. I'll share them with you. The Buena Vista Center, the current center, has an annual lease payment of $142,327, with $112,252 of this cost being subsidized by contributions from our 3 jurisdictions. And as you said, that lease ends June 30. So at the new center, the lease payment per year will be $83,000, which is going to save our localities some money from having to pay less share.
Probably by a
But
third.
level funding. We
They're
asked for
asking
level funding,
Oh,
so
okay.
we should maybe follow that. Thank you. for that.
Probably there'll be a windfall, or if we continue the same funding level and their expenses are down.
Well, I mean, they still will have expenses equal to what they have at the other center. It's just that the lease payment is less.
So our agency funding request, I think that was sent as part of the council packet, but I'll quickly pull that.
Sent it out on March 13th,
Is that what it was?
prior to the work session. I think Chuck had asked for it.
And that's in the packet, like you said.
Is it in the packet?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So here, what I'm showing is the actual 2025. The 2026 request and then the recommendation. So just running through these quickly, the green ones up at the top, these are items that we're not required to fund. They're all discretionary. So, a couple entities who had stopped requesting funds through the pandemic. We submitted requests this year. Unfortunately, we weren't able to recommend funding those. Limestone requested an extra 500, but we want to keep them at 4,500, and that way the Rockbridge Ballet.
So the health center, rah-rah and rats, those weren't, their requests weren't for new capital projects. It's for picking up those ongoing, those past.
And then, for rats, however, Michelle did in her request letter mention that they would also like, rather than 7,500 in cash, if we could do something in kind and pay for parking lot. So that's something that's on the table.
I will disclose that I'm a board member on RARA, but I don't have any financial benefit from it, so I can I think discuss it impartially and fairly.
And the same for me with rats.
And I guess for rats, we own the building, but they have to maintain it. That's why we would negotiate to maybe pave the parking lot. They're supposed to pave it, but we could do
That's
it.
my understanding.
Okay.
There are some things that Public Works has done in kind.
Yeah.
But
That's
for the
good.
most part, the responsibility is for rats to upkeep the building
Mhm.
and pay rent of $1 per year.
There's only three entities though that funding is being recommended for, right?
That's right.
Okay. Which three are those?
They are, for swimming. Lime kiln. And tap.
Okay.
And actually the ballet too,
And-
it's just not showing. Yeah.
And lime kiln and tap, or I'm sorry, lime kiln and ballet are both matching dollars for the grants. Virginia State grant, help me out, what it's called.
The art, yeah.
Thank you.
So we applied, the applications were due April 1st and we applied for lime kiln.
And like last year, it was was it Hailstone that received, if you remember, I think I've shared via email, Fine Arts in Rockbridge for a long time supported Hailstone Dance Studio, the Rockbridge Ballet, and the Rockbridge Symphony with a whole bunch of services. And we would support the fair with a grant. And then when fair dissolved, that did hurt the symphony, Hailstone, and the Rockbridge Ballet. And so we've now rotated that grant through the ballet, the symphony, and Hailstone. And now we're kind of starting the rotation again. So Rockbridge Ballet last received a grant through the city in FY23. And then in FY24, the symphony got that grant. FY25 Hailstone got the grant, and now in FY26, the ballet would again receive the grant. And hopefully we can continue that in 27, the symphony would get it again.
What's the $15,000 for swimming?
That's for the,
Outdoor pool agreement.
Oh, if there's an agreement. No, so it's not.
For Swimming does the management of the outdoor pool, hiring the lifeguards, running the snack bar, all that kind of stuff. And we negotiated the 15,000 as a flat fee. And I think technically if the swimming pool should, after expenses, pull in 20,000, we'd get some back. But
To clarify, I do believe that 15,000 is for the indoor pool. That's what it shows in our budget.
all right,
Indoor pool, because the county also sends $15,000. And that was one of their discussion points on Monday night, that it's not contractually obligated. And that
Right.
led to a little bit of discussion at the county. But when you look on page 168 of our budget, it does spell out indoor pool.
for the outdoor pool.
We do.
Yeah, what you're saying was true too.
Yeah,
though.
you're right. That's contractually obligated, I believe, what
Yep.
you're describing.
Yeah.
I don't
it's just
believe
not
that-
this line item.
correct.
Gotcha.
I've been here. We
Right.
had to pay more to make up for the deficit.
So the agencies that we are showing that will not be funded, are they aware yet?
Not yet, once the budget's passed, then I think Jamie normally sends out a letter letting people know, yes, you're this much. No, it's not.
Some of them may come this evening.
Well, I think.
Yeah.
someone-
Of course, those agencies,
They're watching the meeting.
the agencies that have requested money have received letters in years past that said, here's where we're at. And nothing has precluded them from continuing to request money. I mean, they've received a letter back in probably FY23 or FY22 that said, I think we sent a letter when it was the last time we were making a donation to them. So they can keep asking, and that's for us to decide.
We've had a, um, agreement perhaps amongst council that we don't fund outside agencies. We certainly don't have them. We used to have lengthy meetings over those. And
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, as the new guy on the block, because I know you had deep discussions about it in the past, I've read about, without questioning any of these, is there a policy? Are there criteria for deciding who gets what or when, or? Because, I mean, it's a good investment and you leverage an incredible amount of services through these amounts of money. So you can
Definitely.
all educate me later, David. You can have me separate. I know.
And I'll provide to you kind of a thought paper on it from several years ago. But essentially what our council at the time agreed to was that we would not support outside agencies that we were not contractually obligated to with operating costs. We have made multiple one-time contributions to outside agencies. Holes Drive-In, we did. I think the health center, where we've made capital contributions to capital campaigns, RARA. But we decided that we would step away from them relying on us for their operating budget, but that we would participate in capital campaigns for one-time expense or one-time projects.
And John, from a philosophical standpoint, I'm speaking for myself, but I think the essence of the conversation a few years back was it's incumbent upon us to run the city with the tax dollars that we generate. And for us to pick and choose nonprofits to subsidize is not really appropriate use of tax dollars. I'm not asking you to agree. I'm just letting you know that
No,
that was
I just
the
wanted,
logic
Yeah.
behind, because we found ourselves lobbying, $2,000 for Yellow Brick Road. And almost council members coming to blows over that needed to happen. It's a great organization and the $2,000 wasn't going to make them or break them. But there were people that felt that wasn't a good use of tax dollars.
no, I know you all worked on it. I just wanted to understand, and maybe not questioning these numbers, but just in the future, David, if you can pass that to me.
I will.
I mean, I did work with a city where we did come up with criteria for support to not-for-profits agencies. And there was a policy and criteria. And then everyone knows, well, let's not go and ask the city because we know here's the things that they'll fund and
They'll ask anyway, but yeah.
To a certain degree, our policy,
Had that.
we don't fund them. And I referenced the lime kiln and ballet that David talked about, the trifecta there. We've always done that because of the arts grant. So if we don't put it, to your
and they
point, the
don't get the
leverage,
grant. Yeah.
we can get a state grant and get additional dollars into the community by funding that. So, Nick, okay.
Thank you.
Certainly.
So down here, this section in the salmon color is, this represents the agencies that we are required to fund. And so we did recommend full funding for nearly all. Quickly here on line 27, Rockbridge area CSA. We talked about this at a past meeting, but I just want to reiterate. The way I calculate for our budgeting purposes is slightly different than the way Dinah does for her budget. So that's why it looks like she requested 392 and recommended 750. Her $392,000 number represents our net cost. So then scrolling down, the agencies that we did recommend funding less than what they requested are the library and the SPCA.
With the library, do we know where the county is on that, or the other Buena Vista, or Bath was also involved? Do we know if they're?
We don't.
No.
Both BV and Rockbridge County, when I've spoken to Jason Tyree, the city manager, and Spencer Suter, they're still dealing with closing the budget gap of several $100,000 or over $1 million, depending on which jurisdiction you're talking about. So I, I just have the impression that they're going to be hard pressed to fully fund those agency requests.
In the library actual amount for 24, does that include the bump up? No,
I will increase that. I think that the number we ended up with was 216,000.
216 and some change, yes.
okay, so it's still a significant increase from over last year. Okay.
What was the gap in what they asked for and what was recommended? My eyesight's not quite that good.
The request, Julie, you correct me if I'm wrong, was $245,245. And
Difference of almost 7.
Okay.
I think for the SCPA, it was just a couple $1,000 difference.
And what was the rationale for that? It was just too big of a jump in 1 year. It is a big, it is a big jump.
And for a long time, they were requesting under 10,000, so it's grown.
Okay. And what we're giving, is that a contractually obligated amount, or is it more than what we're contractually obligated?
Are you talking about the SPCA?
Yeah, for
We
SPCA.
have no obligation to the SPCA.
We don't, okay.
They're doing us a huge favor by
Right.
filling that void
Okay,
for
I didn't know if
that
everybody
minimal
on that
fee.
orange was contractually obligated or not. Okay.
I mean, we're obligated to have the service,
Right.
so that from that standpoint, it's obligated, but we could take, and some people have advocated that they didn't like what the SPCA
Right.
was doing,
Right.
and maybe we should take that money and have somebody else do it.
Right.
But we could never accomplish what they do. Those shared resources. So it's obligated, but not obligated.
Yeah. We have to have the service, but it's not a set amount. There's not a contractual amount. Okay.
Keep on trucking.
So next up was just further discussion on the wages. I know we covered that quite a bit in our last work session. Were we just looking at any other comments?
More comments or questions, anything you want to discuss? Then moving more broadly from focusing on wages and benefits to anything else regarding the operating budget, we'll hit operating equipment, capital. Is there anything else?
Question on the operating budget. I think you told us that we have reapplied for a SRO grant. I think in FY 25, we were receiving $47,000 toward that officer. In this FY 26 proposed budget, are we receiving any grant funds, or are we fully funding the SRO in the current budget? And if we were to receive a grant, would that be budget relieving?
Not be budgeted. Right now, we do have the full cost of the SRO under the department wages, and we have an offsetting revenue that's to be reimbursed.
Okay, all right,
And the same with the
okay. The detective, we have that grant though,
yeah, that
but the SRO, we do not. Okay, so if we do not receive that grant, that would be kind of a hole in the budget of $47,000 roughly? Okay.
So if we don't receive that grant, would that allow us to have the SRO go to Waddell as well?
Well, I mean, I think it's a policy discussion. I mean, I think we have had a school resource officer as long as we've had a grant to pay for it, is my understanding. My feeling, my recommendation is if we didn't have a grant that paid a substantial amount of that, well, the position is nice to have, it's not essential. And so I would suggest that officer's position rotate back to the patrol division. But but I haven't had any discussion with any other stakeholders about that. I would want to engage parents, teachers, school officials, Rebecca Walters, people in the police department and talk about that. But that's my initial reaction. If we didn't have SRO grant funding, I think we should discontinue that.
Now, for your question, so under the rules of the grant we received, the officer has to be dedicated to one.
Right,
So, the SRO position, I don't see why we couldn't share.
right. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
And we have had plenty of years where we did not have the SRO, but we do have officers in the schools that go in and out, and kids get to know them and they help out, and
I do think if a change were to be made, that it would be absolutely important to talk to other stakeholders, as you stated, because when the SRO initially came on board, there was surveys and a lot of positive feedback. So I think it would be good to absolutely check into that.
Next up, we had, I think at a very high level, discussed the equipment budget. We spent a lot of time talking about the police department, not as much time on the request on public works. So does anybody want to dig deeper into it?
I just would piggyback on one of Nick's questions about if we expect an increase in these equipment purchases, if we're buying things brand new or even used due to economic forces.
The answer is absolutely.
Yeah. So
That's based on just what I'm reading in the media, the same as you.
right. Okay. And that would just kind of go to the point that I made before. Would we stagger our purchases? Or, when you said we would be responsible and stagger our purchases and try not to go over budget,
That's right.
try to accomplish as much as we can within budget. But if every item was going to cost 25% more, we might have to curtail what we acquire.
Right.
Okay.
Patrick trying to get Scott Damon the heads up that we probably won't want to issue all of our POs. Wow.
I guess the reality is if we have something on order, we've already locked in a price. So we're good there. Just be any new purchases in the new fiscal year. Okay. I can't remember if we have any trucks that we're still waiting for, like the trash truck we were waiting, almost, yeah.
Street sweeper or something.
Yeah, I think we have three large vehicles / pieces of equipment. on the field. But those prices are.
Gotcha.
And anything else would be by way of enterprise.
Well, what we're proposing in this budget is to do kind of a hybrid this year, to test out the enterprise model. So I think, it's about 50/50 is what we're proposing to buy, but
Gonna test it out and see if we like it.
Strategy.
and then capital budget. I think
I don't have any questions or anything to highlight, but it's really more to give you the opportunity to press and ask questions and ask for more information on it.
Any other budget related questions for staff? We'll get to hear from the public later in our regular meeting, but this work session to come together and finally tune this budget for 2026. Greatly appreciate your all's time and professionalism, and especially the preparation that Jen's put into getting us to this point, and the rest of the team in support of getting her the information. But at this point, does anybody feel a need for additional work session regarding the budget? You can always come back and ask for one, but we'll just continue to mull it over, hear the public this evening, and any meetings between now and May when we plan to adopt the budget. So very good. Jen, thank you. It is 6:49. Is there anything else, City Manager, that you want to address?
No, sir. Thank you.
We will stand adjourned from the work session. Glad everybody's here. We will reconvene at 7 o'clock for the regular meeting. Five.
Help us.
Let me share with you the history.
Ideas on how to better.
That's what I've been doing for the last year and a half.
Good stuff.
Thank you for saying.
Why open my
Never better.
On the board, I think, with my kids. Okay, that's what
So.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Lexington City Council meeting of April 3rd. Before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to read guidelines for addressing City Council when the time comes for public hearing, as well as for citizens' remarks and comments. Public comments are always welcome, and I invite you to sign up over here if you wish to speak tonight. I will recognize those signed up during the citizens' remarks section of Council's agenda. And during this agenda item, I will ask that the following guidelines be followed. Once recognized to speak, please step forward, stand at the podium, and for the record, state your name and if you are a resident of Lexington, Virginia. If you want to be contacted after this meeting, please provide your contact information to the clerk, Janie Hostetter. Please make your comments to the council as a whole and do not engage the audience. Ask that you be brief, state your position, and provide facts. Please provide any written statements and/or supporting materials to the clerk for distribution to the council and the city manager. Debate is prohibited. This is a time we want to hear from you to share your thoughts and ideas with your city council. And lastly, please speak clearly as we want to hear what you have to say. The council allots 3 minutes per each speaker, and individuals may not yield their allotted time to another person. If you represent a group, you are allotted 5 minutes, and you're invited to identify other members of your group who are in attendance. And I remind us all that the meetings of the Lexington City Council are formal proceedings and are recorded. And with that, I would like to open and call to order the Lexington City Council meeting. And before we move on with the agenda, I wanted to observe that in the past 2 weeks, we lost a former mayor of Lexington and the first female mayor of the city of Lexington, Mayor Elrod. And if you will, please join me in a moment of silence in remembrance of her service to our community. Thank you very much. Mayor Elrod made lots of contributions. I won't articulate them all tonight, but most of us had the opportunity to serve with her during her time on council and as a mayor of Lexington. Next item on the agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance. If you all please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you much. Next item is consideration of the agenda. I'm not aware of any changes or modifications to the agenda. Unless there's an objection from council members, we will adopt the agenda as presented. It is adopted. Next item is presentations, and I'd like to invite up Chief Dickerson to join me for the Lexington Fire Department pinning ceremony. We've had some busy folks, and we've got 2 folks with us this evening for the pinning. And Janie, if you will play photographer while we work through this. And Chief, go ahead.
Mayor and Council, thank you for your time. I apologize. This was started to be a group of 6. We're playing a little catch up since pre-COVID days. A collision, like a major interstate collision, and we're down to 2 tonight, so it'll go pretty quickly. I'm going to call up firefighter advanced EMT Macy Thompson and her family member, and firefighter EMT Leighton Wormser and his father.
I will say, if y'all want to come on up here. Get you to stand here so council can see your profile. Actually. Here it is for me. Here it is. There you go. There you go. Thanks, man. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for answering the call. You have a family similarly dressed in the back of this room, but all of Lexington and community is your family. So thank you for joining our entourage and for the service that you'll be providing for our city. And invite you to I'll lead you in this oath. Do you solemnly swear to uphold and abide by all laws, policies, and procedures set forth by the state of Virginia, the city of Lexington, and the Lexington Fire Department, and further swear to conduct my duties to the best of my ability without bias or discrimination? And will you protect and serve our community and all souls you encounter with humility and compassion? And will you hold your conduct to the highest moral and ethical standards set forth and established by the American Fire Service? If you do, please raise your right hand. Say, I do. Fantastic. Thank you. Who do you have pinning tonight?
Take a short moment. Tell you a little bit about these two folks. Macy started as a volunteer in Eagle Rock, as prior career service that exposed her to us, and we are very happy that she chose to join our family. Leighton started as a volunteer in Boonesboro, came on a visit 3 years ago on a Christmas Eve with one of our other volunteers that he knows, Drew Sorrells. Rode, put an application in, and we have not turned back since then. The only mistake in hiring him is I hired our most active volunteer, but we're tickled to death to have him. He's from Lynchburg, where his father serves as the fire chief. I refer to Lynchburg as that smaller, lesser known LFD. You guys would step forward and pin them for us. One of you draw blood. Thank you.
Again, very grateful for Chief leading this initiative with the city manager to have our first responders come join us, and excited for y'all to be on the team. And thankful for y'all being here, and certainly understand if you don't want to spend the rest of your evening with us. Have a good night. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, crew. Next item on the agenda is Healthy Green Neighborhood Coalition, and I'll call on Jamie Gooden to give us an update. Welcome, Jamie.
Hello, thank you all for your time tonight and continued good work. Give this a refresh, okay? Alrighty, my name is Jamie Gooden and I'm here tonight representing the Lexington Healthy Green Neighborhoods Coalition. Please feel free to pause me at any moment for any questions. All right, so for those who may not be aware yet, the Lexington Healthy Green Neighborhoods Initiative was spawned from our most recent comprehensive plan update. I'll go through a timeline a little bit later, but essentially what we are hoping to do is to directly address the green infrastructure goals and objectives in the comprehensive plan. And there is some overlap there with the capital improvement plan. One of the cool things about how we're approaching this is the collective impact model, which is essentially maximizing the public and private synergy that we can create at the most efficient way possible. In that, we have a backbone organization, which is Rock Ridge Conservation, and a number of partner organizations and institutions in the area. And we meet to work through these problems, use our networks and our expertise to delve into solutions and actually execute them. I mentioned our team. We have a robust team, a lot of fantastic people, always great meetings, full of awesome ideas that actually seem to get done, which is a rare treat. We have, I'm not normally a guy that reads off PowerPoints to people. But we do have the City of Lexington, Carillion Clinic, Main Street Lexington, BMI, WNL, the Lexington City Tree Board, Boxerwood, Friends of Woods Creek, and Rock Ridge Conservation, all represented on our steering committee. And we have engaged a number of volunteer networks. These may not be all of them, but these are ones that we're able to fit in today. Boxerwood, some local master gardeners, 4-H, as well as the volunteer networks of Friends of Woods Creek, Rock Ridge Conservation, and WNL. So here's our timeline. As I mentioned, we started around 2020 as a result of a catalyst project in the comprehensive plan. Catalyst projects are a relatively new part of our comprehensive plan. I won't go deep into that tonight, but this was the initial one to kind of get us kicked off, if I remember correctly. Part of that led to the creation of an ad hoc green infrastructure working group. That group communicated with and convened with a number of the partners listed before, as well as some others, to really ask ourselves, how can we make the green infrastructure of Lexington more robust today and tomorrow? The product of that was the Getting Greener in Lexington, Moving the Conversation Forward report in January 2023. And there's a companion briefing note, which is a more succinct version of that. From there, presented to City Council and Planning Commission. And then we were awarded some startup funding via grant from the Rock Ridge Community Health Foundation and Carillion Clinic. The goal being to increase the mental and physical well-being of citizens. That grant was just over $20,000, so not insignificant, and we're very thankful for that, and we continue to spend that money today. And you see a few of our actual activities that are either completed or in progress as of this moment. Improvements along Woods Creek continue. Planting trees at Jordan's Point and along Woods Creek. We had an awesome tree giveaway last year. There's a tree nursery in the works at Public Works. We are doing some really robust research on recycling initiatives, which we hope will yield a great conversation towards revamping that program throughout 3 municipalities. Stormwater improvements, that's been very fun and educational to work with Patrick on that. Urban green space. As you know, we do have some incredible urban green space in Lexington. Right now, Main Street Lexington has recently joined our team and to find ways that we can support the Courthouse Square renovation. Of course, improving walkability and safe biking, and some educational programming for the youth is in the works as well.
Jamie, with the $20,000 grant, is that funded some of these projects like the great tree giveaway and things of that nature, or?
It did fund some of them. At one point, we had a program facilitator or initiative facilitator. It funded that person, and it will fund some actual trees, some benches, the educational programming. I feel like it also kind of gives us a little bit more legitimacy because we're a funded organization with all these great partners, and that's how we've been spending it so far.
Excellent. Thank you.
So I mentioned a little bit about our operating strategy. We are a working group, collective impact model, steering committee. We meet once a month. We kind of give reports on what our various organizations are up to in the green world. And then we collaborate on those projects at hand. A lot of that, as I said, is discussion, actual planning and execution, and I think perhaps most importantly is tapping into our individual networks. So some of our initial activities back in 2023, forming the steering committee, hiring a coordinator, and reviewing the green infrastructure report, getting all of our stakeholders on the steering committee up to date on what green infrastructure is as defined by the comprehensive plan. Then we got to work on some tree planting, Woods Creek and Jordan's Point. There's a gravel bed for trees at Public Works. And we have some additional trees for Jordan's Point planned for later this year. We've also been working to remove some invasive species along Woods Creek. We've been working with WNL, with having some great conversation to talk about how they can partner with us and the Friends of Woods Creek on the Chesky Trail, particularly the parts that run right through campus. That seems to be going very well. I'm excited to collaborate with WNL on that project. These initiatives are guided by MOUs with the city, WNL, and BMI, kind of again demonstrating our professional approach. And we have some public seating in the works for Woods Creek for 2025 as well, working with Public Works to get those installed.
Jamie, you mentioned the work on the creek with Washington Lee. Have you engaged VMI at all, or?
I believe so. John, you may be able to help me a little bit with this.
Yes, it's through the Friends of Woods Creek, one of the partners, and they have an MOU with VMI. So it's treating Woods Creek as an entire network, working with the 3 jurisdictions that are responsible for it.
Good. Thank you.
As I said, comprehensive plan and the CIP are kind of our guiding lights. Here we have 5 of those topics for consideration from the comp plan: active citizens, really walking, biking through the urban green spaces to increase public health, tree canopy and planting, sustainability, waterways, stormwater management best practices, and wildlife, mostly through removing invasives and allowing natives to thrive. We even have some opportunities in the near future for bees, which will be fun. Active citizens. So here, how can we get folks outside and engaging physically with the community? As I said, removing the invasive plants, planting new trees just to increase the aesthetic and, physical value of those areas. Reducing stormwater runoff at Montessori, replacing 2 footbridges. That's, I believe, in the works. WNL has been a part of that conversation as well, to my knowledge. We all know the bike lanes are in progress. It looks like they're making quick progress too. It's nice. Jordan's Point, continuing improvements. We are planning something for later this year for another round of tree planting in tandem with some Boxerwood educational programming. Waddell Street sidewalk. I mentioned the courthouse square and us helping them. I imagine at some point we'll engage them on helping to identify great plantings, native plantings, non-invasive ones that can make that space as awesome as it can be. And continuing to focus on the parks, Fairwinds, Limekiln, Richardson, Taylor Street. I mentioned the great tree giveaway from last year, a little bit earlier. This is an initiative to get trees in the hands of residents, especially in the low canopy neighborhoods. We ended up giving away 51 trees, provided some assistance to plant them. Those 51 trees included 24 households, and our waiting list for next year is growing.
Were they large trees, all small trees, different sizes?
John may be able to address this.
If you go back 2 slides, you'll see the size. No, they're about this high. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
It's hard,
Yeah, there
hard
they
to
are.
see,
Frank
but
is holding one.
Yeah, little babies.
they're
But they
starting to
were-
sprout.
They were given to those who had reserved, and they got information about planting them, and in some cases, help in planting them.
I think there were in excess of 25 that I'm aware of that Janice said she, went home with somebody with a tree and planted the tree in their yard to get them started.
One thing I love about this is kind of the experiential intergenerational interaction within this particular context, because as we all know, we're not going to be here forever. So getting the next generation engaged has been a big motive for me for some time. I want to mention a little bit about some of our other kind of ongoing projects, recycling, carbon footprint consideration, reduction, greenhouse gas consideration and reduction. These are all huge projects. So I can't say that we've solved recycling or eliminated all greenhouse gas yet. However, we have a nice brain trust, a tremendous amount of data we're collecting in tandem with the county and some local businesses as well. We have some of their data, hoping to consolidate that in the not too distant future to get the conversation going on how we can reapproach that particular challenge. WNL has really been leading the way on some of the carbon footprint and greenhouse gas reduction and recycling and composting on their own campus. So we're learning a lot of lessons from them, which is super useful. And WNL has its annual greenhouse gas accounting upcoming. That's all I know about that at this point. However, I'm sure folks like Jane Stewart will have more to say later this year. Then kind of rolling through some comp plan highlights, waterways and stormwater management best practices. So here, I think this is kind of a combination of the brain trust and being able to work directly with Public Works. The stormwater fee, we provided some input there, helping to complete the mapping of the system. And then you see a lot of these photos you've seen on the presentation are folks in action on Woods Creek, removing the plants, which have a direct impact on the watershed, which leads into the stormwater. We're already talking with Public Works about the retention pond in Woods Creek Park. And when that project happens, how can Rock Ridge Conservation's water monitors be involved to get the appropriate data to make sure that that is happening in a safe way? And we are providing some guidance, and we're in conversation with the country club and the redesign and reconstruction there as that directly impacts Woods Creek. Then I mentioned bees earlier. This is one of our newest projects that we're starting to put focus towards. Still tip of the iceberg. But basically the Blue Ridge Garden Club is seeking some significant funding to make this a pollination station. That's not quite the word, but that is the vibe for what we hope to accomplish in the area. I don't need to list the benefits of pollination, but we're excited to do that, and we're excited to have more of that regional collaboration. And then there's classifications for green spaces and protocols for management and growing. I know the Rock Ridge Conservation, the Friends of Woods Creek folks, who are incredibly expert in those areas, are more than eager to lend their expertise to help develop those things. And that is what we've been up to in the last year and a half. Any questions?
Members of council have any questions for Jamie? Jamie, when I have, you mentioned you're working on some recycling ideas. Is it too soon to share a little bit of that, or?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, stuff is on paper in draft, that brainstorming form.
Okay.
So I would hesitate to
Fair
let
enough.
any cats out of the bag, but it seems to be pretty well researched. I think our goal is to really just establish what is the status quo right now.
Mhm.
What are some data points? What could be some KPIs? Who are the players? Get that on a level playing field, and then begin considerations and working with folks and making recommendations.
How often are your meetings?
Once a month.
The current status of our recycling, of course, is on site at Public Works for cardboard, cans, exclusively. And it'd be great if we could, perhaps, I know when I've gone to, deliver boxes, it's not, easy and it's not, smooth, for lack of better terminology. It seems like there are better way or better containers. I remember we used to have containers that had just a slit in it that you had to break down your box and put it in, and just, I think that can lend itself to working better because not everybody breaks down their boxes, but, yeah, but look forward to those, recommendations and, doing a better job, because that's something that I know we're committed to. I was on council when we first started curbside pickup back in the early 2000s, and it was disappointing when we, got away from that. But very excited about the work your team's doing, and look forward to more partnerships and, more good work.
Same.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Next item on our agenda is public hearings, and I'll call on the city manager to introduce the public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is a second public hearing in our budget approval process. This is on the operating budget for the city of Lexington proposed for FY26, as well as outside agency requests. We've already had one public hearing on our capital improvement program. The next public hearing after this evening will be on May 1st to combine the operating budget and CIP together. And then the formal approval will take place in June with the appropriation ordinance. So all the budget information has been put out on our website and has been publicly available for almost a month. Want to recognize both Jennifer Bell and Janie Hostetter for their work putting together the budget information. I appreciate all of their hard work and making this possible. So with that, Mayor, I'm happy to answer any specific questions, but I think this is a time for the public to weigh in on outside agency requests, those that were funded close to what they wanted, but not all, and those who were not funded, as well as any other operating expenditures that are proposed.
Yes, this is for the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget and agency funding requests. Members of council have any questions for the city manager? And of course, we worked on this in our work session prior to this meeting, but hearing no questions from council, I'd like to open the public hearing. And first on the list, signed up is Julie Goyette. Julie, come on down. And Michelle Watkins, we have you on deck.
Good evening, everyone. You know, I'm Julie Goyette. I'm the director of the Rockbridge Regional Library System. And I would like to first thank you for your continued support. I've been here for just shy of 12 years, and it's always been wonderful to work with the city. For fiscal year 2026, the Library Board of Trustees draft operating budget requests $245,254, an increase of 13%. This significant increase is based on several factors: much needed renovations of the restrooms in Lexington, a library card catalog upgrade, which will be more cost effective, functional, and provide better access for patrons, an increase in expenses and a decrease in donations, a 3% cost of living pay increase for staff, which is an effort to catch up to inflation. The library provided 5 years of budget actuals, FY20 through FY24, the current FY25 budget and FY25 actuals through December 2024 to the 4 local governments, in addition to the FY26 budget request. In partnership with our local governments, Rockbridge Regional Library System adds great value to the communities we serve by providing the following services and programs, resources. The library bridges the digital divide by offering one-on-one technology training, 24/7 Wi-Fi, and public computers. The library plays a crucial role in supporting early childhood literacy by providing access to books, story times, and early learning programs. I apologize. It's great to have Bluetooth hearing aids, but not always.
Really.
We play a crucial role in childhood literacy, and the library's literacy program continues to successfully recruit and train tutors for children in elementary schools. We also support economic development in the communities we serve by offering resources for job seekers, entrepreneurs, and small businesses. Patrons also have access to online job vacancies, one-on-one assistance with job applications and resumes. For patrons who have limited social interaction, the library offers a welcoming space for community gatherings, social events, and support groups. The bookmobile travels to post offices, churches, recreation centers, and even convenience stores across the region. Library staff also serve homebound patrons with regular visits and personally selected books. These services combat isolation and promote mental and emotional well-being. The library provides access to health information, spaces for telehealth services, which is especially important in areas like ours with limited resources to healthcare access. Access to library materials in areas without a brick and mortar library, like the self-service lockers at the Fairfield Rescue Squad, information and training on topics like self-serve legal forms, career online high school, kindergarten preparation, homeschooling resources, and test prep like the ASVAB. Also passport processing and notary services, and all of this at no out-of-pocket charge. We also offer copy fax services for just a nominal fee. You know that we serve the counties of Rockbridge and Bath and the cities of Lexington and Buena Vista and the smaller communities throughout the region. Our locations are in Buena Vista, Glasgow, Goshen, Lexington, and Warm Springs. All of these locations share collections, and we have a 4-day delivery service. So if you're in Glasgow and you want a book in Bath, you can probably get it within a day or two. Thank you again for your support of Rockbridge Regional Library System.
Thank you, Julie. Before you take off, members of council have any questions?
I will ask one. So a couple of the things you mentioned that you want to do for this coming up year, they were capital projects, so one-time expenses, like the
Yes.
bathrooms, and I think there were a couple others, but
Yes.
so did you break those out in your budget so that the localities know that those weren't necessarily recurring
We broke them
requests
out
or-
by the locality, the percentage that you all, I think yours is 18.8%, Bath is 10.43% based on the population. So we broke them out that way. Is that what you mean?
No, I guess what I'm asking, so take the bathroom.
Let
for
me ask it a
instance.
different way, just to interrupt you, sorry. What's the cost that you anticipate for the capital improvements of the restrooms in Lexington?
The restrooms, right now, we have budgeted $30,000. We've talked to
30,000.
some contractors and we've tried to keep it as lean as we possibly can.
Sure.
And I guess my question is, did you point out to the locality managers that that would be a one-time, not a recurring cost? So that won't show up in the budget next year.
No,
Okay, all right.
this is just a one-time fee for the
Yeah,
restrooms.
right.
One question that I had was one of the programs that we funded in prior years, but we do not fund now, is the Talking Books program. Do you all interact with them or support their efforts in our community?
We do support them mostly through our outreach services. We have 2 staff members. One is an outreach assistant. The other is the manager of the Bath County Library. And we support them through outreach primarily. But I learned today that their services will no longer, they will not be funded after September 30th.
Hmm.
So we do support them. We don't provide financial support, but we
Right.
do send it out in our outreach. Our staff will show people how to use the equipment, sign them up, help them through that process.
Partnered with them, but not financially.
Right,
Thank you.
right.
Thank you. Mr. Ziegler.
Are you aware and able to share any impacts of federal spending changes?
You know, people have asked me what this is going to mean when you hear the news. What is IMLS and how is it going to affect us? IMLS provides LSTA funds, Library Services and Technology Act funds, to the Library of Virginia, who distributes it to libraries like ours. The best illustration of those cuts is we pay for maybe 5 databases. So if you go to our website and you look at all of the links and all of the resources, and some of them are mentioned here, we may not have those. So that's the impact. And it's, we use E-rate, we filter our computers and we get federal funding for E-rate. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. And the only thing that we're hearing people say is, we just don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in the near future. So, and we're all in the same boat, to be honest. We're not special that way. So I will tell you that economically, when things are hard, the public library is very important because there aren't any fees to come in and use the services that we can provide.
You mentioned that donations were down. How much were donations down?
I'm sorry, I don't have a percentage to give you, but they're down significantly. I think when the tax laws changed, that hurt us like all nonprofits. It hurt all of us. But I can't give you a percentage. I can get that back to you, but I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, Julie, thanks for leading the library team and the good work and the services that they provide our community and the greater Lexington area as well. We're grateful for your 12 years of service and years to come and
Great.
lumbering through the funding and what the future holds. So,
Absolutely.
and thank you for being with us this
Thank
evening.
you.
Next on sign up sheet is Michelle Watkins with RATS. And I'll call Miss Alexander to acknowledge her connections.
I am on the board of directors at RATS, but I don't find the need to recuse myself because there will not be any discussion. There will not be any decisions made this evening. But I do need to disclose that I am on that board of directors.
So I'm going to probably sound like a broken record. You guys know me by now. I'm Michelle Watkins. I'm here with Rockbridge Area Transportation System, but also on behalf of Rockbridge Connect and Nourish and Valley Area Stretcher Transport. And I think the common
Michelle,
denominator.
I'm going to ask you to speak or step up a little closer. The
Okay.
ladies in the back can't hear you.
I'm sorry, my voice usually
You're good.
carries.
Much better.
Thank you. But obviously, the common denominator, as Julie was also talking about, is we have so many community programs that are not receiving funding that are being adversely impacted by current financial trends. RATS had been approved for $139,000 earmark with the U.S. Department of Transportation. That was revoked 2 weeks ago. The funding that Rockbridge Area Transportation System in particular is requesting right now is $7,000 to go towards re-asphalting the parking lot. It is actually a city of Lexington property, but we are, of course, assuming all financial responsibilities in accordance with our agreement with the city. But the asphalt is not a cheap process. It's cheaper than concrete. But it's going to run us, I underestimated, it's going to run us about $32,000 to re-asphalt that parking lot. So any contribution that the city is able to offer, it sounds minor, but when you factor the jarring that the potholes and everything have on our vehicles, and the vehicle that I'm now requesting from the State Department of Transportation is only $96,000. So when you are jarring vehicles of that size and cost, those little potholes add up quite a bit very quickly. So I am simply, on behalf of RATS, requesting $7,000 to go towards the cost. And that value was originally prorated on what we anticipate the city residents to be utilizing of our service. Roughly 40% of our riders are from the city. So that $7,000 value was prorated based on that weight. So, social programs, especially now and in the next couple of years, I think are going to be even more in need, especially transportation. And any support and assistance you guys are able to provide to help us be able to continue meeting that need, we appreciate.
Thank you, Michelle. Members of the council have any questions?
I don't know if this is a possibility or not, but if Public Works was able to help out in some way with
I'll
that.
take it.
Okay.
I won't be fickle, but we're just trying to find sources as well. And that was one of the costs that I was trying to factor, is if the city Public Works is able to contribute, we're hoping the community can support the community.
Thanks. Collaboration is always key. And with the VDOT project, I don't know who has the contract for putting the asphalt down when that project gets completed. You may want it done sooner, but may not make a lot of sense to do it until Main Street's completed, but it may be an add-on that we can collaborate. And I'm sure the city manager will work smart in trying to provide some in-kind services to RATS, who provide a terrific resource to our community.
Greatly appreciated. I won't be with RATS after June, but I know everybody there will nonetheless really appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening in reference to this public hearing on the fiscal year 26 budget and agency requests? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:39. Will not ask for your consideration, but if there's any discussion, observations the council has relative to the budget. Hearing none, we'll progress. And next item is consideration of the minutes. They were provided prior to the meeting via email. Any objections to approving them as presented? They are approved. Next item, citizens' remarks and comments. Again, we are elated to hear from our neighbors, and I would ask, I didn't see anyone signed up, but is there anyone who would like to speak to council this evening? Seeing no one jumping out of their seats to address council, I'll close the citizens' remarks and comments at 7:40 and move on to the consent agenda and ask for council's consideration of the item for street closure.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
Have a motion and a second and a roll call vote. Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Driscoll.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn. Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander. Motion carries 5-1. Should have recognized earlier, Mr. Smith is not with us this evening, except in spirit.
It'll be 5-0.
What did I say?
5-1.
5-0, excuse me.
Did he send a message?
Yeah. Testing you all. We're really close to April Fool's Day, and I am the master fool. Next item is unfinished business, not aware of any. Reports and communications. Mr. Smith with Blue Ridge Resource Authority and Main Street. We'll go to planning. Ms. Strawn.
Sure. Planning Commission met last Thursday on March 27th and continued a discussion on mini warehouses and also as part of the 5-year comprehensive plan review, looked at the local economy chapter and the arts and culture chapter. And that's all I have.
Very good. Regional tourism, Mr. Betts.
The next round of tourism sponsorship program opened April 1st, 2025. For application submissions for events occurring between July 1, 2025 and December 31st, 2025. Applications will be accepted through April 30th, 2025. The awards for this round will be announced Monday, May 26th, 2025. Successful applications will have funds distributed for their event by June 15th, 2025. Any events seeking funding must be located within Lexington, Buena Vista, or Rockbridge County, Virginia. Maximum amount that can be requested per event is $3,000. The total amount that can be awarded for all events combined in this round is $10,750. However, there's no guarantee that this amount of funding will be awarded. The Rockbridge Regional Tourism Board will review applications and make determinations based on the ability of each event to attract out-of-town visitors and how well each event aligns with regional tourism's goals and objectives. End of report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Betts? Very good. Raro, Mr. Ziegler.
The RARA Board of Directors met yesterday. We approved our FY26 budget. I let Jen know. I believe the total budget is about $733,000. In addition to approving our budget, we received a report from 3 Washington Lee students that are members of Washington Lee Student Consulting. The 3 students were Margaret Schweppe, Rhodey Brandt, I'm sorry, I want to get their names right, and Jack O'Brien, I believe. The 3 students chose to evaluate RARO's outreach to adults about our adult programs. You know, we've always done youth outreach, youth programs, but it's been, it's newer that we're doing adult programs. And so they did an online survey, and then they also went to multiple RARO events and did in-person surveys. And these 3 students came with a handout and a PowerPoint presentation to our RARO board to tell us if we're getting our message out and how we can better get our message out. And so it was really an excellent presentation. They were poised, they were clear, they took our questions, and we got a lot of good feedback. So really appreciated them taking on our project. In addition to receiving that really good report presentation from those 3 students, we also we did have a healthy debate amongst our board about some of our sports offerings. We offer flag football for ages 5 and 6. And then when it moves into 7 and 8-year-olds, 9 and 10-year-olds, and then the older 11, 12, 13, 11, 12, it's tackle for all of those ages. And so what we are planning to do next year is we're going to expand our flag football offerings to that 7 and 8 age group. Our plan right now is to allow 7 and 8-year-olds, if their parents wish them to still play tackle football, to give them that opportunity. But we would like to give the opportunity to continue with flag football for another year or 2 if the young people are not physically developed to play football, if they don't want to play tackle football, if their parents don't want them to play tackle football. And so we looked at every option, quite honest. I mean, we feel that's our responsibility, but this is the recommendation that we passed, that we will, for those 7 and 8-year-olds, they will have an option to do flag football or tackle football. And we plan to follow a NFL sanctioned or not sanctioned, but their rules that they're putting out, their league, that they're promoting flag football, and that's what we'll do here in Rockbridge County. And we are, I don't want to say we're late to the game on that, but flag football is everywhere around us. And we just felt that providing that option to families and to kids was the right thing. Who knows where it will go in the future? But right now, focusing on the youngest kids that honestly, as we all know, have the highest risk of complications if they receive concussions at a young age. We wanted to give parents that opportunity to choose flag football for 7 and 8-year-olds rather than only having the tackle football option. So just wanted to update everyone on that.
Do you get many girls playing flag football? Is it a co-ed league or?
It will be co-ed. Absolutely. Yes. Mhm.
Good stuff. Good place for our children to be out enjoying RARO. Next item, threshold housing. Ms. Alexander.
Yes, we had a meeting on February 26th, and I gave a very brief report at the last meeting. And I think that the content of that meeting needs to give rise to more detail, because it explains a lot more about the homeowner helper program. And at the last meeting, we had a lot of things going on, and I felt like at this meeting, we could probably do more justice. So the threshold meeting on that night started with some historical information about housing in Lexington, especially the need for affordable housing, how the population impacted the need, and this was back in the 70s, the cost burden, and how stakeholders intervened to make things happen. Also got into more reporting about the windshield survey that we had, where the people who actually did the survey put eyes on what they could easily see in regard to homes, the roof on the homes, the walls, the outside walls, the foundations. There's a map that divided the city into 6 different blocks, and they used the census geography to develop that map. They indicated that we have quite a diverse stock of housing, but these are some of the recommendations that they made to increase our housing stock. Getting involved in land trusts, further diversification of the current stock, continue to collaborate with colleges and universities, encourage new housing production, and reform local ordinances as needed. Funding sources such as support of new home buyers, CDBG funds, and Virginia Housing Assistance. We started talking about the homeowner helper program, and Tom Carroll, our city manager, came in to speak about his experiences with developing this program in Ohio. And he did confirm immediately that the city council did approve $250,000 in funding to help toward the homeowner helper program. He suggested that the EDA may need to help issue any loans, such as handling the legal mechanics of it. But Threshold would do the eligibility, design the program roles, application information to be submitted to the EDA for them to process loans. Talked about barriers to fixing up housing, and I mentioned the fact that a lot of single parents live in Lexington, and a lot of people are elderly and ill and unable to fix up houses. The homeowner helper program will kick in basically due to code enforcement issues, but we don't want to couple those two things at this time. And how a homeowner helper program would work. An order is issued. A resident can't fix the problem. We have money set aside as a revolving loan source at 0% loan. If they want to sell the house after a repair, then a lien has to be satisfied with the sale of the housing at closing, or the person can satisfy the loan themselves in that type of option. With that funding, the proceeds of the sale would be added to the current coffers. If we deplete our coffers, that is something that we'll need to be addressing and deciding, as we could see some losses with this, but we hope not to have them. But we need to have something put in place in that event. We will require residents to have a will. Normally, what was experienced in Ohio, most of the people that they worked with did not have one already, but we would be expecting our residents to get one done. In Ohio, their county auditor had to check on mechanical liens, mechanics liens, but in Virginia, that can be checked. Any check on liens that are existing can be checked. The city will find a contractor. In Ohio, it was minority-owned companies. That might be less prevalent in Virginia, but the city in Ohio developed a relationship with the contractor. And just like we had with Threshold, the city staff developed relationships with the contractors who were doing threshold repairs years ago. The money does not go to the homeowner. The contractors are paid by the city directly to the contractor. Repair limits in Ohio was $15,000. And if the repair requires more, we would take a matter to city council to make a decision. Basically, exterior work, because it was something that was a finding for code compliance reasons. But with us, we could do work inside. It would be first come, first serve. All in Ohio, they had $100,000. They didn't deplete all of that. All who applied and qualified were served. They worked on roofs, they painted, they had siding replacements and repaired dilapidated porches. Most of their residents were elderly and disabled residents. They made available to any homeowner occupied home, not rental property. Income limits. Basically, they took the residents' word for it that they were cost burdened. Here, we may use income limits that are established by the federal government. We haven't gotten that far yet, but we will in April, the next meeting. Advertised in the community, and it was part of an advertisement about the code enforcement process. If we do interior work, it must be specific to safety and health. If it's exterior work, it must be safety, health, and aesthetic issues. Basically, in Ohio, it was about 50% code and 50% safety and health. Inspections would need to take place to include the contractors during inspections. This project can build the local workforce with the use of our local contractors. And there's a consideration to hire a home inspector to do all of the inspections. In the next meeting, it was expected for Tom and Arnie to merge the Ohio program with threshold decisions made about the homeowner helper program. And we're considering bringing additional staff midway of our process, those who may have involvement, such as our city building inspector and our fire marshal, for example. And then the meeting that we had last week on March 26th, I will indulge you at the next meeting to tell you what happened then.
All for now.
Yeah, that's enough for now.
Fair enough. Thank you, Ms. Alexander. Exciting things going on with Threshold and certainly with the Homeowner Helper Program. For my report, just wanted to recognize my deep appreciation to General Wins as he is staring down June 30, I believe, is his contractual end date. He's been a great partner and friend for the time that I've had the opportunity to work with him, and wish him and know that he'll find much success in whatever endeavors, maybe full retirement, but grateful for his service to VMI and to the community. Speaking of the community, very grateful for the teams that compete every year in the community cleanup. If you didn't see all the orange bags last weekend, you weren't out because they were prevalent, and it's just such a treat. It's always disappointing how much litter ends up on the side of our roads. You know, bags from fast food restaurants and things of that nature, which is just very unfortunate. But the community cleanup warriors who compete every year for the coveted cup, very grateful for their efforts in cleaning up our highways and shoulders of our streets. And had a moment of silence, but just wanted to take a point of personal privilege in acknowledging the passing of Mayor Elrod and her family. Our sympathies go out to them as they mourn the loss of their mother, who had a profound impact on our community. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to have worked with her on council in the past. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 4 items to report this evening. First, we had our pre-construction meeting today with contractor for the DSS building in Buena Vista. And so we will be issuing a notice to proceed next week, and that starts the legal clock by which they have to reach substantial completion. And so that clock will be starting next week. Everything looks to be going well. You may recall that we have engaged services of former city manager Jim Hallis to be our owner's representative. He was at the meeting this afternoon. So all seems to be going in the right direction. All the contractual paperwork is being exchanged, and I'm excited to get that project started, and just appreciate Mr. Hallis's help on that project as well. Second, we also had a pre-construction meeting today for our City Hall project. The City Hall move, Public Works, as I've mentioned to all of you, did an outstanding job. All the coworkers that were in City Hall have done yeoman's work to clean out boxes and move files and get rid of things that we don't need anymore according to our records retention schedule. But Public Works did an amazing job moving us into the 3 different swing spaces. Just a quick reminder, the registrar is at 300 Diamond Street at the former Wilbur Downing School, the board offices. The registrar, the treasurer, where you want to pay your taxes or water bills, at 626 Waddell, and all other city offices that were in City Hall, Human Resources, IT, Planning, and City Manager's Office and Finance are all located at 539 Nelson at the intersection of Walker and Nelson. The estimated construction completion date under the contract would be July of 2026. So that's, 16 months from now. Third, I emailed all of you separately, but I wanted to convey that I called Jesse Lyons today with the Main Street Lexington committee that's in charge of the courthouse square, and let them know that, the decision has been made to not remove the 2 parking spaces, to not remove those 2 parking spaces in front of the courthouse square project. He expressed his appreciation for the call and shared his view that he wishes it was a different decision, but also understands the nature of the decision. I think this is responsive to the requests and feedback from the merchants. And for me, what was also very important as we're looking at solutions for how to stop trucks from knocking over the traffic controller at Nelson and Main. All the solutions involve the elimination of 1 or 2 parking spaces for safety reasons, and that has to take priority over anything else. So, again, just letting everyone know that is the direction we're going. It doesn't preclude the possibility that down the road, if the merchants feel differently, if the courthouse grounds is being used differently, that we couldn't take those parking spaces out in a future improvement. And then finally, just a reminder, we have a field trip to Morris Creek Dam on Monday. That's a meeting that's open to the public, but it's not easy to get to it, and we'll be transporting anybody who wants to attend that meeting. So if you are planning to attend and you're a member of the public, please email either Janie Hostetter or myself, and we'll try and make any accommodations. Just a reminder that the site itself is not accessible from an Americans with Disabilities Act standpoint. So we'll make any accommodation we can, but we're looking forward to showing you the dam and you can see the sinkhole and have any discussion we have about the dam and its purpose at that point. Happy to answer any questions.
And are we meeting at your new facility at 5 o'clock? Is that?
539 Nelson, yes.
Leaving at 5.
Yes. Bring a brown bag lunch.
Yeah.
Dinner.
Yes.
Something about a 3-hour tour is going through
Yeah,
my
yeah.
mind. Those are the 4.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Any questions for the city manager?
I have one question about the barriers, the orange barriers on Main and Nelson. Are those permanent?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No. Those are called Jersey barriers. They're for construction purposes. So we are looking at 2 solutions for how to discourage or reduce the frequency with which trucks might hit that traffic controller, which I think has happened 4 or 5 times in less than a year that I've been here, and I'm not sure how many before. So one solution, and it's probably the easiest, is to remove 1 parking space near the bank of the James, which is presently a blue ADA parking space, and then restripe some of the other spaces between there and the fire hydrant. There are 5 additional spaces. We think we can keep all 5 of those spaces, but we want to move the end of the first parking space further to the north. That would involve removing that 1 ADA space. We would replace a space with an ADA space, so there would still be an accessible parking space there. But that will give a truck a wider turning radius and reduce the probability that they'll have to turn more sharply and hit the pole. We're also probably going to put a planter. There are several planters that we're looking at that would not block the pedestrian access on that corner. But if a truck were going to hit something, it would hit that planter first and hopefully stop. And that planter would be what is sacrificial in order to stop. That's one solution. The second solution would actually be to flip-flop parking on the on-street parking on the block by Cornerstone Bank and Lex Prez and Brew Ridge. In other words, move the parking from the Brew Ridge side to the Cornerstone Bank side of the street, which would make the travel lane the center lane, which would give a truck a broader turning radius to turn right onto Main. And then what is currently parking on the Lex Prez side would become a travel lane. That's more involved, and we think it would lose 2 parking spaces. It's not a fast solution either, because there's many stakeholders that would probably want to weigh in on that. There's also likely that we would lose 2 to 3 parking spaces with that solution. So it's a good idea, and I'm glad we're exploring it. I think it's probably the heavier lift and one that has more downsides than a more simple solution. But those are the two approaches we're looking at.
I think they're good plans. Have drivers just gotten worse? Because that light post has been there for years, right? That hasn't moved. And
It
that
is-
used to have that ADA parking spot used to be a regular parking spot. So it's just that drivers have really gotten bad.
But we have a
truck
few
drivers.
theories. The trucking industry is suffering a labor shortage,
Yeah.
so there are newer drivers and fewer of them. Second, GPS is routing people
That's
in
true.
a different direction that they might not otherwise take, and they think this is probably what GPS is telling me to do. It's,
Yeah.
appropriate.
That's a good point. But thank you for your work. I think it's a good plan.
Along the lines of Misery Loves Company in Lewisburg, West Virginia, the turn from Route 60 onto 219, which is the equivalent of our 11, is a building that is about the proximity of the turning signal. So that building has been hit multiple times. Same problem persists. They passed an ordinance that tractor trailers are not allowed to turn left or turn right rather at that intersection. However, they don't always read the signs and the building still got hit. So the property owner put a steel beam in so that the truck gives way now instead of the building. So lots of opportunities. Yes, Nick.
Is a guardrail a possibility, like a permanent guardrail?
We don't think so, or a bollard, simply because there's a catch basin right at that intersection. And so you don't have anything to plant a guardrail in or a bollard in. And so it's just kind of structurally difficult to do that. Makes sense.
Yeah, lots of things you can't see under that asphalt. But a good idea. Excited that there's so many exhaustive and creative thinking going into it. So thank you for the short-term Jersey walls that are so eye-catching. Next item on the agenda, City Attorney's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, Mr. Betts, on the visitor center issue, I have a call on Monday with representatives of Brightspeed, so hopefully we'll make a little headway.
Bark into that, ladies. in the
Hopefully
back.
we'll make a little headway on that lease then, and I'll report back, and let you know what the reaction is.
Thank you.
And I also just wanted to comment on the homeowner helper program, Miss Alexander. Sometimes there are great ideas in places like Ohio, and you pick them up and you move them to Virginia. Unfortunately, you can't just do that without finding a source of authority in Virginia that allows you to do it. It's, how many times do we say we're a Dillon's rule state, right? You've got to find something in the Virginia code that allows you to carry out that program. And there are a couple of code sections that would allow the city to do it directly, but they come with a number of constraints or requirements that really didn't suit the objective that Tom was trying to carry out by bringing the Ohio program over. You'll recall when we were talking about tax issues for housing development several months ago, we talked about Lexington not having a housing authority. One of the consequences of not having a housing authority is, in lieu of that, we can use an economic development authority to serve that function in certain circumstances. And this is one of those circumstances where we can work through the EDA to accomplish things similar to the Ohio program. And so that's why we're working through the EDA with that. I know that you commented on that we were going that way, and that's why. It's to legally accomplish everything that we want to carry out with the program. We needed to go through the EDA rather than doing it directly.
So are we in the initial phase of this, as far as development? Should we have EDA involved in the development of the program?
Yeah, well, the EDAs across the state function differently. Some are simply conduits, and that is perfectly legally valid. Some are more involved. What I would propose and what I've talked about with Tom is we'll do a little MOU between the EDA and the city that'll explain the flow of money. And beyond that threshold, we'll take the lead in issues of eligibility. And then the city will take the lead on issues of assisting the EDA with procurement and any staff that's needed to work on the program.
Thank you so much.
Other than that, just a couple things to address in closed meeting, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the city attorney? Hearing none, fire sprinkler program update, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As Ms. Alexander mentioned, back in October, City Council set $250,000 aside for the homeowner helper program. At the same time, you set aside $250,000 for the sprinkler incentive program. And since that time, the EDA has been working with fire chief, with finance director, with the city attorney on developing the sprinkler incentive program. And so what you have in your packet this evening is the draft marketing brochure, but it spells out some of the key terms that are being contemplated by the EDA for the sprinkler incentive program. And if you recall, the sprinkler incentive program has several different purposes. One, it's to reduce financial barriers that property owners face when trying to sprinkle a building, which has several purposes. The first purpose is to save lives, reduce risk of injury or death. Second is to preserve the structures themselves, our historic fabric. And the third is to unlock second and third story space, which is presently underutilized in some parts of our historic district simply because the spaces couldn't be used without being sprinkled for residential use or certain office uses. And so the EDA has developed this, which would contemplate no more than $125,000 loan on any given loan and a 10-year payback period. This is effectively a 0% loan. A loan agreement will be put in place, and Mr. Carroll is helping us develop all those documents. We are also, if you recall, the city has a tap fee, which is simply our time and materials to connect a building to the water main. But in our downtown, as the mayor just said, there are often lots of things underground that nobody can see that are obstructing. So we charge time and materials for that. Under this program, if it does unlock that second and third story space, those tap fees can be essentially put on the back of the loan, whatever they cost. And if the property owner has fulfilled his or her obligations during the term of the primary loan, that could be waived at the end of the loan. That was Ms. Bell's idea, very smart incentive to sort of encourage people to fulfill their loan because they have something else that could be forgiven at the end of the loan. And so there's no action that's necessary on this item this evening. This is just for information purposes only. But when we met in October, just as Ms. Alexander brought back information about where threshold is with the homeowner helper program, bringing forward this information for you. Happy to take any comments and bring back any concerns you have to the EDA as well.
Are you receiving any feedback from the business community as to whether they are willing to take us up on this offer?
Yes, we think we have our first candidate for this property on Washington Street. Potentially a perfect candidate, a vacant storefront and unused apartments upstairs. There would be 2 apartments. And so we're working through the details with that property owner. And that project would be more in the neighborhood of, well, we're just ballparking, but $30,000 to $40,000. So a smaller project to get out of the gate, still a significant amount of money, but it would potentially unlock 2 apartments, which would be fantastic for our homes, for our renters.
If that does work out, when it's done, we should publicize it so other folks know about the program.
The letter that was included in our packet has that was signed by the chair of the EDA, the mayor, and the fire chief. Has that letter been sent, or was that an example, like a draft?
It's a draft.
Okay.
I think there were some edits that still need to
Okay.
be made, but
But that a similar letter will eventually go out to each property owner. And since we have a couple, as we know, property owners that are hard to track down, even hand delivering it to the tenant, to the business on the first floor, at least then we know that someone at the building has received it. And not that people won't know about this program, but I just think it's really exciting and it just puts our best foot forward. So thank you.
And if it's a multi-story building, they have to do each floor, is that right?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
You could, create the infrastructure to sprinkle the whole building and just do part of it. Depending on if the circumstances require that. That is possible
Okay.
from a engineering standpoint. It is still expensive,
Uh-huh.
but yes. it is
Okay,
possible.
because I was gonna say, there's, it mentions it briefly, but it's sort of vague, but now I understand why it's vague, because it
That's
doesn't.
exactly
work.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, next item is work session scheduling. And as you all know, we have a lot of balls in the air, things going on. Tom was good enough to detail this memo, and I'll let him speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor. As the memo articulates, we have 7 or 8 joint or work sessions, some of them joint meetings with other entities that have been discussed. And I'm simply trying to plan out the calendar for the next several months and take your temperature as to which of these are the highest priorities, which of these can wait, and which of these perhaps we can defer indefinitely. We did meet in January with Rockbridge County and City Council from Buena Vista, and we have tentatively penciled in a second meeting on the 5th Thursday in July. That would be July 31st. Buena Vista has promised to host it, but then I heard that the city manager was going to be on vacation that day, so we'll wait and see who else might host it. But working backwards from July 31st, at the January 30th meeting, we discussed possibly having a joint work session with RARO. At least all 3 entities considered having joint work sessions with the RARO board to talk about the recreation strategic plan. The mayor and I have talked about having a joint meeting with Maury Service Authority as we get ready to refresh our agreements. That's not pressing because we're not quite ready for that. We're going to the Morris Creek Dam on April 7th, and we're still waiting on the outcome of both the grant application and the engineering report about the problems there. We have several issues related to housing. Mrs. Alexander's already mentioned the threshold. We also have the Central Shenandoah Planning District housing, and there's a summit that is in the works for September 30th, a housing summit that I'm helping to plan with Tracy Lyons from the Chamber, Brandy Flint from Rockbridge County, and Christina Ramsey from Buena Vista. So there's a variety of issues around housing, and they're different, right? Everything from how we deal with homelessness, that is a certain set of problems, how we deal with rent and affordable housing, workforce housing, market housing, all of those are housing, but they're very different in terms of their scope. And then we talked about having a joint meeting with the Planning Commission regarding the comprehensive plan. So simply laying out all the various items that I'm kind of tracking. And Mr. Driscoll had mentioned Town and Gown. I didn't mean to forget that.
That's okay. It won't go away.
So I had just thrown together a draft for discussion purposes of work sessions to be had and when they might be held or scheduled. This is really up for you to decide whether you want to have them then, whether you want to have them later, off council nights. It's really up to you and your pleasure.
City manager is looking for feedback if you have any. I've suggested that my preference for most of these work sessions is to do it on an off night. I'm not a huge fan of our 6 o'clock work sessions that we may or may not plow through and get to our 7 o'clock, but I'm also mindful of off Thursdays, especially when we look at housing and other things dealing with planning. The Planning Commission meets on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays. So that's not a great time. So if they're Tuesdays or Wednesdays, depending upon schedules, trying to find a time to meet to do that. And preferably evenings. I've been an advocate for 5 o'clock start time if that works for people, so staff doesn't have to linger and wait into the evening. But I'm sensitive to your all schedules, and I'm not looking for debate and obligations at this point, but that's the logic behind looking at this, trying to find reasonable times to meet to work on these various items and your level of urgency for dealing with them too. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's
Prompt any questions?
So are the 10th and the 24th not likely to be days or?
Well, we decide relative to the budget, if I'm following you, the 3rd, 10th and well, 3rd's today, the 10th and 24th, I think we surmised at our work session that we don't need those. We'll just carry the budget forward. We've gnashed our teeth and counted the beans sufficiently. If city manager has something that comes up or a recommendation or change, we'll embrace that. But my perception is council's content with the budget. So that
The 24th was also a suggested day for the town and gown, but
I can't do the 24th. I don't think Chuck can either. Hey, and speaking of the town and gown, I assume we are going to have our own work session without, the others to figure out what we're looking for and what we want to discuss before we start discussing.
I think that's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say the idea of a joint meeting with the planning commission is to talk about the comprehensive plan, shared issues, and if you will, introductions. I'm not sure everybody on the planning commission knows all of council and vice versa. So just a more of a meet and greet and conceptual rules of the road and how we work together from that standpoint.
Okay, good.
But the town and gown, call it what you will. We've had 2 work sessions on institutional creep, and I'll go out on a limb and say beyond Chuck's, I know it when I see it. And my definition of buying property, taking it off the tax roll is my definition of institutional creep. Council's not embraced a definition. And I think before we engage planning or anyone else, we've got to come to a decision of what that looks like from that standpoint. John circulated a memo, as you are aware, and brought up at our last meeting when we were dealing with the CUP of formalizing some agreements with the universities.
But we're nowhere near that point because we don't even know, we're not
Correct.
all on the same
We,
page.
we
and I'm-
need to figure out what our goals and objectives are before we go and ask for support for those goals and objectives.
Right. And I'm glad to hear about what our goal is for the planning commission meeting, because planning commission should not be talking about the same thing until council gives some direction on
Correct.
what we want.
Correct. Arguably, and that's part of the plan discussion, is to, again, talk about the rules and responsibilities of the organizations. We don't have, I won't call it a Dillon rule with the planning commission, but close to it from that standpoint. But I think it'll just help support staff in their ability to better support the planning commission and ARB as well. So, other questions or declarations? If you have items that you feel are of high need to address sooner than later, please email the city manager and me and make me aware of those desires, and we'll sort through finding times. And if there are, other obligations like Leslie's planning commission on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays that we need to stay away from. So again, Wednesdays or Tuesdays are logical times. I can't imagine you all would like to get together for a work session on Friday or Saturday night. Woohoo.
Are we that pathetic?
Very good. Anything else, city manager?
No, sir.
All right. With that, we do plan to go into a closed session meeting. I anticipate that it will be informative, and when we adjourn our closed session, we will come back into open session for the sole purpose of adjourning. And I'll ask Ms. Alexander to read us in, and thank you all very much for being with us. and for your engagement with our community.
I move that the City Council of the City of Lexington convene in closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A7 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation and pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A8 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice. I've made the motion. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second. Roll call vote. Ms. Strong.
Aye.
Mr. Sigler.
Aye.
Mr. Driscoll.
Aye.
Mr. Betts. Mayor Friedman.
Aye.
Thank you. I vote aye. Mr. Smith is absent. Thank you.
I would expect nothing less.